Hi there, it's Ian here, and you're watching Grumpy Opinions, the show where I'm going to tell you all about what I think of films, TV shows, games, and life in general. Let's get on with the show. Star Trek Discovery is a show made on CBS, where the crew of the USS Discovery do some Star Trek and, well, not chasing giant spaceballs and a time-traveling tiger mum scientist out to find a future space computer virus or something. I mean, you know what I mean, if you've been watching the show, you understand. Anyway, Episode 11, Perpetual Infinity, kicks off with a flashback to the day that Michael's parents bought the big one, or so we thought. And while they're about to have dinner, Klingons arrive to start a badness, and then Michael gets locked in a cupboard. And she wakes up on the disco and assumes that seeing her mum was just some kind of death dream she was having. But then they point out, nah, it actually was her, but you need to chill out and stay, because your mum's out for the count and you're not well. Still, in the meantime, she gets to work on the logs that they got out of the Angel's suit. Meanwhile, on Section 31 ship, Leyland's woken up tied to some kind of upright gurney, and a hologram of Control is chatting to him, pretending to be different people. And then it does an even bigger needle attack than last time, and it zooms him full of nanites, I suppose. Anyway, so that's Leyland being all matrixed, and like I said last week, he's gone baddie now, and straight away he's on to Emperor G and Tyler and telling them to get the sphere data off the disco computers, because that's what Control needs to make it sentient AI. And they get to work. And Michael, on the other hand, she's plugging through her mum's logs and finds that, she used the suit to escape the Klingons, but it pulled her 900 years into the past instead of an hour back in time like she planned. So she's been trying to fix things ever since by time travelling, but she always ends up getting sucked back to that time after a little while. And then Spock pops in and says to Michael, mum's awake, so this time Mikey's mum doesn't want to talk to anyone but Captain Pike for some reason, and Pike agrees that it's a bad idea for Michael to go down. She's not happy. But anyway, Mike's mum says to Pike, you need to let me go, because only I can do this, and I'm right, and so you should just do what I say, okay? Wow, sounds familiar. Anyway, obviously he's nah, but they're on the clock since, they can only keep her contained for so long because time is trying to pull against it, and it's taking loads of power to actually keep her there. So they decide that they're going to delete the sphere data just as a precaution, because that'll stop Control. And anyway, Tyler's all I'm going to download it on this fly using this magic ring. But the data doesn't want to get deleted, so it sets up firewalls and stuff, since it's some kind of future brainy space data, and it's got viruses and things, and it can outthink them all. Okay. So Stamets and Tilly and Spock and all that come up with this plan that they're going to send the suit off into the future with the sphere data, and that stop Control ever getting to it because it'll be too far in the future, and then they can use science to keep Mike's mum there in the time permanently. And Spock's
I like science.
Anyway, meanwhile, Tyler tells the Matrix Leyland their old plan isn't going to work, and he's okay, new plan, troops. So he tells Emperor G to go over, download it as they're streaming it to the suit, and then blow it all up. And she's okay, I mean, you seem a wee bit off, but he's yeah, but this is me in serious mode, so she's cool with it. And they're getting on with that, and Gorgeous George heads down and has a bit of a mum-to-mum chat about Michael, because they both love her, and of course they do. But it turns out it's a ruse, also that Emperor G can do the download trick, like I said. But they're streaming the data to the Angel suit and it's working. But during that, Michael's mum says something that gives George pause, and she calls up Tyler and says, by the way, Leyland isn't right, he's probably Control, and he already knows, and he knows something's up, so he goes to have a wee peek at him. And he wanders in right while Leyland's getting all weird and matrixy face, and he gets a stabbing for his trouble. Luckily though, Leyland buggers off and leaves him alive, just alive enough to leave a short message to Discovery just before he falls over. And then Leyland goes all Thanos and starts attacking the folks on the planet, killing them, and damaging the containment field. And he gets into a fight with Giorgio, and Stamets and Michael and Nala blast the projectors, and that sends the suit back. And then it suits Michael's mum up into the vortex as well. Ooh, I hope she doesn't end up in space again, because that won't go well for her. And then once that's down, they can beam back up on the ship, and they blast the complex to bits with torpedoes, but of course, Leyland's already beamed away, and the Section 31 ship just shoots off, and there's an escape pod that's been left behind, and on it is a badly wounded Tyler. Ooh. So what did I think? Well, I actually thought this week wasn't too bad. I mean, it moved at a fair pace, it chucked in a lot of info and exposition, but did it not too badly, and it managed to move the plot forward in kind of an interesting fashion. I mean, we're actually getting somewhere with the story. We're learning stuff about the Red Angel, and we've got a bit of resolution on that, and we've got a clear antagonist now in Control, having taken over Leyland, kind of like I predicted last week, because he's got a physical form now. Now, we're only a few episodes from the end of the season, so the stakes are being set up for the end game. Anyway, I also like that we actually got to meet Michael's parents. Her dad, who's called Michael, he seems pretty easygoing. We don't really get to know him much. But then Mike's mum, who's called Gabrielle, is basically Michael, just worse. Really stubborn and overbearing and dictatorial, and dare I even say it, she's kind of bossy. And that must be why Emperor Giorgio really likes Mike so much. And I want to give total props to both the casting folk and also to the actress. Her name's Sonia Son. and she did an absolutely great performance. And also, even from the first line that we actually hear her say, she sounds exactly like Michael. I mean, the accent, the cadences, that was all really right on. I really liked how they did that, and it's obviously like, they cast somebody who looks a bit like Sonika Markin Green as well. I mean, it's good casting, and it's good acting on her part. And it's kind of a shame that I just felt like she didn't get quite enough to do this week. And that's the thing. I like that they're rounding out some of the characters, and the actors are really doing good jobs here. But it's the writing that's letting the show down a wee bit, as always. So to get into like the grumpy parts, I mean, well, let's start off with the Leyland thing. I mean, the control hologram exposition dump. Now, I mean, that was okay, sort of, and we knew that he got zapped last week. But I mean, did we really need that rehash of like basically the bit from the end of Terminator Salvation where the computer does all the different character faces while dumping a huge amount of exposition? I mean, it kind of felt like that was a bit redundant because we knew that it was obviously control. I mean, granted, as I said last week, I kind of thought for a moment it might have been like a secret thing set up by Giorgio, but no, I realised pretty much immediately it had to be control taking it over. So I mean, it probably would have worked if it fine if we just cut straight to Leyland walking out and being a bit robotic and strange and serious. I mean, surely the audience would have worked out that something was wrong because otherwise, I mean, he got stabbed in the eye. Why isn't he reacting to that? But the writing kind of treats the audience a little bit like The Thick or maybe Children. And I'm going to go with Thick because, I mean, this is a show that has swearing, violence, and it's even had sex and nudity in it. I mean, so it's not really like they're aiming it at kids. They're aiming it at adults, but then they're treating the adults like they're not that bright. And let's face it, I mean, stick to Section 31 for a minute. I mean, I've kind of grumped about the portrayal of Section 31 on and off for most of the show. And since they kind of appeared properly this season, there have been problems with it. And I don't even mean in the sense of it contradicting stuff from the previous shows, because let's face it, I don't really know enough about it to say that Section 31. I mean, I remember they get mentioned in Deep Space Nine. But it's more the fact that they haven't really established it as something that makes sense. Because, I mean, half the time the bridge is totally empty, but it's only when this suits the show to have an empty bridge. But, I mean, as far as I know, like, ships in real life don't work that way, like naval vessels and stuff. And I'm pretty sure, like, in Star Trek, I've never seen, like, the bridge of the ship just be completely empty at any point because people need to fly it and do all the other controls and stuff. But in this one, it's just like, randomly they'll walk out, and every time that Leyland and Giorgio need to have a conversation, they won't go somewhere private. They just suddenly the bridge has no people on it. And similarly, like when Leyland got matrixed and like nobody noticed, I mean, fair enough, we saw that Control can like do his voice over the comms, but it's supposed to have been 5 hours since that happened, like between the end of the episode and he got stabbed and Michael had been knocked out, because they say at the beginning it's been 5 hours. And then suddenly they don't actually need to find him. Nobody's seen him for ages, for like 5 hours. That seems a bit strange because it's a very small ship. And as we see later, anyone can basically just walk in because apparently it doesn't lock the door. Even once he's back, I mean, he gets like Ash and George to do the CIA stuff. But then when he stabs Ash and beams down, I mean, what are the crew doing on the ship? What are the Section 31 crew doing? I mean, has he killed them all? Are they all dead? I mean, it seems a bit strange that they just stood around while he beamed down and started like laser blasting people. And then at the same time, Ash, he'd been stabbed and he was really hurt, and he's gotten from the ready room to some escape pods. I mean, I'm not sure where they are, but I don't think they're in the same room. And the only door out of the room he was in is onto the bridge. So where were the people on the bridge, and didn't they see him bleeding out all over the floor? And why didn't Leyland just kill him? I mean, other than the show wants Ash to continue being alive. But these are little things that, while I was watching it, I just thought, hang on a minute. So, I mean, I'm going to assume that Control killed the rest of the Section 31 crew. And if we assume that the ship's now empty and it's not been established, but if we assume that, right, I mean, how did he kill them? Did he just one by one kill them? I mean, that would have taken a while because he beamed down really fast. But if they're not dead, then were they aware of what was happening? I mean, why didn't the Discovery crew contact them when the fight happened? I mean, surely they must have a chain of command. They've been working together for like a few episodes now. I mean, surely the comms officer on the Discovery would know the comms officer on the other ship and would have been like, "What's going on? We need a hand. Help us out here. Send down a team of like, SWAT dudes to go and help us." But nobody seems to have done that. They just seem to have forgotten that the ship was even there. I mean, it's lazy writing that just went, oh, well, if we don't talk about it, nobody will think. But the problem is, people do think, and it didn't make sense. And what's even worse is, it could have been really easily fixed or avoided. But it's lazy writing. And meanwhile, back on the Discovery, I mean, we've got mostly good stuff, as I said. It wasn't a bad episode. But Michael's again showing that she's kind of unreasonable and unstable. Like, I mean, I don't care that she might have ended the war, like, between the humans and the Klingons. I mean, a war that she started by doing a mutiny. But there's kind of literally zero reason that she should still be in Starfleet. I mean, she kind of should be sweeping future dust out of like the warp nacelles or something, because twice in this episode she comes out with arguments that boil down to do things I say because I say so, and because I say so and think so, it means this is right and someone's, not lying. And she's done that previously. And I hate to bring up the whole Mary Sue thing, but it's a lazy kind of writing that comes from bad fanfic writing. And it's funny because her mum does exactly the same thing. But literally at one point, Michael says, we should believe my mum because she believes this thing and would try really hard, so we should just believe her. I mean, she's grown up being taught logic. That's not logic. That's we should believe the person I say we should believe because I say so. I mean, it's daft. And the other thing is, I mean, at no point does Michael even consider that her mum might have driven kind of space and time crazy from saving the universe over and over and jumping back and forward in time. We don't know anything about her if she's good, bad, or indifferent, or even just confused. And also, her mum seems to know some stuff about the future, but not everything. I mean, she can't see this future clearly because they managed to outwit her, but she knows Pike's future. So how much does she know? And it's all kept vague. And I accept that that's one of the reasons they keep it vague is because, if you look too deep into this, then they would have to figure out exactly what she did know and exactly what she didn't know, and that might actually just make it all too complicated and not any fun.
I don't want to talk about time travel. Because if we start talking about it, then we're going to be here all day talking about it, making diagrams with straws.
I mean, I can overlook it, but it could be better. Another word on the big fight at the end. I mean, I'm glad they had that big fight. It was nice, it gave folks something to do. It got to, we finally got to see like Leyland and Giorgio having a bit of a punch up, and it also showed that like Matrix Leyland is kind of blaster proof. I mean, mostly. I mean, they don't seem to be using disintegrated kind of guns, but even though I think they had them at that point, but they were shooting him and it wasn't really doing much. And then another thing is, they kicked it off. And they said they were going to beam up their own guys.
I can beam them now, Captain.
Dr. Burnham's only defense.
Did it never occur to them to just beam Leyland up? I mean, they could have beamed him up into onto the ship. They could have beamed him up onto the brig. They could have beamed him into space. They could have beamed him into the sun. They could have just beamed him half a mile down the road because the air's all toxic. I mean, any of these would have been a sensible option, but it never got discussed. And again, as I said, it feels like why didn't they talk to the Section 31 ship and say, by the way, your captain's gone kind of loony bins. Are you not going to do something about it? Also, just on a quick note, during the fight, it was funny kind of how everyone stopped fighting Leyland as soon as Emperor Giorgio and him started fighting. They just sort of sat around and chatted. I mean, that's just directing and stuff and cutting it together. But I felt like at least Nala probably would have waded in to help Emperor George, but she didn't. Instead, she just kind of stands back and takes pot shots from around the corner. I mean, kudos to her for not wanting to just die, but it seemed kind of a bit odd. And also, the drunk camera was back, and it really messed up this week. Now watch this. Boom. Oh. Nice for trying a fancy shot of Stamets and spinning around a circle, but you went too far, you bumped it, and you had to go back. That's a shame, but yeah, enough of this crazy camera now. Another moment, and I just want to bring this up briefly. I love this moment. Wheelchair man away! No, I mean, sure, yeah, there's a guy in a wheelchair in Discovery. Now, that's fine. It's all good. People in wheelchairs is a thing. It's not, but, I'm not being silly about that. But this shot was horrible. I mean, the fact that it suddenly cuts from a close-up of Tyler to suddenly this wide shot just as the wheelchair guy goes past is really just underlining the fact that the makers want to say, look, there's a wheelchair user. I mean, guys, please have all the disabled people you want in Star Trek. I mean, we've already got Nenter on the bridge, who's got the thing on her face, and Geordi LaForge is one of the most beloved characters in Star Trek, and he's a blind guy. So that's fine. That's not the issue. But please don't just suddenly crash cut to a shot of wheelchair man and expect people to feel impressed, because it's not. But anyway, despite all that, as I said, I actually quite liked this week. I mean, there's a few factors in it I think I needed to talk about at length, but overall it wasn't actually a bad episode, and we're winding towards the end of the season, and it has improved. It's much better in the latter half of the season than it has been in the first half. But I do have one wee bit of bad news. See, I'm actually out of town this next weekend, and I won't be able to review the show, so unfortunately we're going to have a week where I miss one, and I'm going to have to catch up the next time. So as I don't have my PC and my laptop, I could take it with me, but it's a piece of junk, and I probably wouldn't be able to do it very well. So in the meantime, I maybe do something else. I might put another video up and do something quickly this weekend, and then schedule it to come up in the meantime so that it's something for you guys to watch. But otherwise, you'll just get 2 episodes next weekend, and then we're back on track. And then not long after that, it's not going to be a huge amount of time before we get into Game of Thrones land. But in any case, Until then, I've been Ian, and these have been my grumpy opinions.